Tonight on Reporting Scotland, a son's call for answers over his mother's death in an Edinburgh psychiatric hospital. Christopher McCree tells us he gave a nurse evidence his mum planned to take her own life just hours before she died.
I trusted him to protect my mum, to do the right thing, to take care of her. And he didn't.
Also on tonight's programme, how much time are your teenagers spending online?
Maybe around like 3 to 4 hours, but you know, it's obviously not good to me, so I'm trying to decrease that number.
Maybe like 4 or 5 hours, but like I know that's probably a bit too much.
Our teens are some of the biggest users of gaming and social media in the world, according to a new study. So how much is too much? Questions over the removal of dead fish from a salmon farm before a visit by MSPs.
Coming up in the sport, we'll hear from the Rangers manager Philippe Clement in Sweden as the Ibrox club prepare to kick off their Europa League campaign against Malmo.
And we'll have the latest on a last-minute bid to prevent the sale of art collected for the people of Paisley. Hello, I'm Laura Miller. Welcome to Wednesday's programme. The son of a woman who took her own life in hospital says he warned a nurse his mother was planning her suicide just hours before she died. Christopher McCree was visiting his mother Sarah at the Royal Edinburgh Psychiatric Hospital when she showed him evidence of plans to take her life. Her death is being investigated by a fatal accident inquiry, which is expected to deliver its findings later in the year. NHS Lothian says it would be inappropriate to comment on an ongoing legal process, but Christopher says he just wants answers. He's been talking to our reporter Andrew Picken.
So this is one of my favourite pictures of my mum and I.
Christopher's happiest memories are on holiday with his mum in the Highlands.
We would go every summer. It was the place closest to her heart and my heart.
Sarah McCree grew up in Skye and worked as a psychiatrist for a time. But most of her adult life was spent dealing with her own mental health challenges, with Christopher's help.
That was my dream. I thought one day, if I can achieve anything in my life, it was that my mum would be always well.
But in 2020, Sarah became so unwell she was detained at Edinburgh Psychiatric Hospital. On one visit, she confessed to Christopher that she was planning to take her own life.
She always said, "I'll be here tomorrow, I'll just get through the night." And this was the first time in my life that she had said no. She said, "I can't promise I'll see you tomorrow." And that was the hardest thing I've ever heard.
Sarah also handed over an object she had planned to use, and Christopher asked the nurse to search her room for further risks. In evidence to the fatal accident inquiry, the nurse said his failure to carry out the search or properly record the incident was an error of judgment.
What I do know is that I handed it to someone. I trusted him to protect my mum, to do the right thing, to take care of her. And he didn't.
The inquiry heard that NHS Lothian has improved its safety processes since Sarah's death. But it also heard that the year before she died, the door in her bedroom had been assessed as a high risk for suicide. And the Health Board previously told the BBC that a project to upgrade the doors at the hospital had been delayed due to budget constraints. The Health Board's medical director said it would be inappropriate to comment on Sarah's case while the inquiry is ongoing. Christopher hopes the inquiry into his mum's death will bring about change.
This is an environment that's built to save people who are ready to die. And I took my mum there because I thought that was a place that she was going to be saved. And I thought that was where she would get better. And on the day she died, she was more unwell than the day she went in.
The inquiry is expected to publish its findings later this year. Andrew Picken, Reporting Scotland.
And if you have been affected by any of the issues raised in this report, a list of organisations that can help is available at bbc.co.uk/action line. Or you can call for free to hear recorded information on 0800 066 066. Now, it's a worry for many parents. How much time is your child spending online? Well, a study by the World Health Organization suggests a sharp rise in problematic social media use and gaming amongst young people in Scotland. It compared self-reported data from 11 to 15-year-olds across 44 countries. So here are some of the findings. 13-year-old Scottish boys reported the highest rates of daily gaming at 60%. For context, the study average was just 34%. And it was not just geographical trends that were noted, changes over time were too. So, for example, Scotland has seen a notable increase in problematic social media use among 13-year-old girls. In 2018, it was 11%, but in 2022, 22%. Our science and innovation correspondent Laura Goodwin has been talking to some teenagers about their online habits.
I quite like the funny videos on like Instagram and TikTok.
Probably playing my PS5. Instagram. Yeah, I would check Instagram and TikTok the most.
Probably open Snapchat to see if I have any new messages or anything like that.
Probably TikTok and Instagram.
Maybe around like 3 to 4 hours, but you know, it's obviously not good for me, so I'm trying to decrease that number.
Maybe like 4 or 5 hours, but like I know that's probably a bit too much, and I do try and keep it down.
It is a reality that a significant portion of young people's lives is now spent online. But how do we compare with other teens around the world? The World Health Organization surveyed 280,000 young people across 44 different countries. Around 4,500 young people in Scotland took part. It found that 13-year-old boys in Scotland reported one of the highest rates of daily gaming across all countries surveyed. 15-year-old girls reported higher rates of continuous online contact than the study average, and the data indicates a notable increase in problematic social media use amongst 13-year-old girls in Scotland.
So we use a specific scale to measure problematic social media use, the social media disorder scales. It's got 9 items which looks at different aspects of the extent to which a person's social media use might interfere with other aspects of their life, for example. So whether it stops them from taking part in other activities, whether it interferes with relationships with friends and families, whether they have to lie about how much time they're spending on social media, for example.
Access to mobile phones, connectivity and school policies around mobile phone use are some of the reasons researchers suggest there might be differences between the countries surveyed. But campaigners say big tech companies have a part to play too.
A lot of the issues that we're talking about in the report could have been safeguarded against if tech companies had age-gated their platforms. So the big changes that we saw during the pandemic, as most people watching I think will be aware, many of these platforms have a lower age rating of 13, but none of those platforms have been age gated, so children have been able to just access those, and that needs to change. That should have changed by now.
While gaming and social media can be a positive and enjoyable part of young people's lives, the report authors say they hope their study can help inform education strategies to help tackle what can be the more problematic aspects of life online. Laura Goodwin, reporting Scotland.
The comedian Janey Godley has confirmed she's receiving end-of-life care. She shared the news in a video on social media, having been advised last week to cancel her latest tour following the spread of her cancer. Today she said she'd been told she could no longer go through chemotherapy and would be going into a hospice. The 63-year-old, who came to fame as a stand-up comic, has been outspoken on social media where she first shared news of her diagnosis. To some of the day's other stories now. And a legal challenge over the decision to give consent to the UK's largest untapped oil field has been given the go-ahead by the Court of Session. Greenpeace and Uplift jointly brought judicial reviews to stop the development of Rosebank oil field and the Jackdaw gas field. If the challenge is successful, operators would have to resubmit environmental assessments for approval before drilling can begin. Funding for a growth and investment deal in Argyll and Bute has been put on hold by the UK government. The Scottish and UK administrations had each committed £25 million to projects in the area over the next 10 years, including housing developments and facilities for business and tourism. The UK government now says a final decision on the funding will not be made until after its review of the national finances. Now, a pay dispute which led to a big reduction in ScotRail services is over. Drivers have voted to accept a 4.5% pay rise, but there's still no word on when the timetable will get back to normal. Well, our news correspondent Jamie McIver has more on this. Jamie, passengers will be delighted with this, but why the delay?
Well, ScotRail is going to provide an update to customers just as soon as possible. But Laura, anyone who's hoping for an immediate return of the normal timetable is, I'm afraid, likely to be disappointed. I'm told it's highly unlikely the normal timetable will return before the week after next at the earliest. Why is that? Well, ScotRail, first of all, needs to find out just how many drivers are available to do overtime. The emergency timetable happened because many drivers were turning down overtime. That was linked to the pay dispute, but it wasn't industrial action by the union. Then rosters will need to be drawn up and a timetable produced for customers. But while the return to normality won't be immediate, there is at least hope tonight that it's not too far off. That improved pay offer, it's worth 4.5% and it's backdated to April. It was backed by 3/4 of ASLEF members in the ballot, and it means that all 4 main unions at ScotRail have backed the improved pay offer. ASLEF says the improved offer came about because of what it describes as the resolute determination of its members. Now, all this is happening days before the return of peak time fares at the company. They're back on Monday.
OK, Jamie at Queen Street Station in Glasgow, thank you. Now, every homicide in Scotland linked to domestic abuse will be reviewed to see if lessons can be learned under proposals published today by the Scottish Government. If the plans are backed by MSPs, the same process would also examine suicides which followed abuse. Our Home Affairs correspondent David Cowan reports.
2 years ago, John Higgins went to a pub after watching a football match, then caught a taxi home and murdered his partner. Amanda McAleer's son found her body the next day. Higgins has now been jailed for life and ordered to serve 19 years before he can apply for parole. If the plans announced by the government are passed by Parliament, that case would be reviewed to see what lessons, if any, could be learned. The minister overseeing the plan says in the last 10 years in Scotland, 63 women have been killed by their partner or ex-partner.
And I think that is imperative for us as a country, whether locally or nationally, that we are prepared to face tragedies in the eye and learn from them and make the necessary changes to protect women and their children.
Claire Ingalls was murdered by her partner Christopher McGowan after he was released on bail. Social workers tried to visit her flat 3 days before she died. As things stand, Scotland is the only part of the UK where such a case would not be the subject of a review. If passed by Holyrood, the aim would be to strengthen the system by identifying what could have been done differently.
Accountability always should lead to doing things better in the future. So I would hope that would happen.
8 years ago, Emily Druet took her own life after being assaulted by her former boyfriend. Under the proposals announced today, such tragedies could also be the subject of a review. Emily's mother was involved in drawing up the proposals.
What I wanted to achieve is saving lives, and I think we can save lives. When you lose your child, you're already plunged into darkness, utter hell, you know, and to try and then form an investigation to look into what went wrong and make sure lessons are learned shouldn't just be down to a grieving family.
The plans were announced at Edinburgh's Holyrood Park, beside a cairn which commemorates a woman who was murdered by her husband 300 years ago, and not far from another memorial to Fawzia Javed, who was killed by her partner on Arthur's Seat 3 years ago. This is an issue centuries old. The hope is that a review process could help prevent such deaths in the future. David Cowan, reporting Scotland, Edinburgh.
An animal welfare charity says it's filmed tons of dead and dying salmon being removed from a fish farm just hours before MSPs visited the site for a fact-finding mission. Holyrood's Rural Affairs Committee visited Dunstafnage Fish Farm near Oban on Monday as part of their inquiry into whether the industry's made progress in tackling significant environmental concerns. The campaign group Animal Equality has accused the industry of trying to cover up the fish deaths, but Scottish Sea Farms says the workers were carrying out routine clearance of the pens. Our environment correspondent Kevin Keane reports.
Monday morning, and workers scoop vast numbers of dead or dying fish into containers on a support vessel ready for disposal. They do it again and again until the large buckets are full. That afternoon, a small rib brings 6 members of Holyrood's Rural Affairs Committee to the same larger boat. Shaking hands, the committee's convener, Finlay Carson. Campaigners feel they weren't given an accurate picture of the industry's woes.
The MSPs really need to simply look at the cold, hard facts to see the number of fish that are dying in Scottish waters, to see how intrinsically unsustainable and cruel this industry actually is, and to not simply allow the industry to pay lip service to better practices.
Parasitic sea lice have been at the heart of the industry's troubles for many years now, but more recently, micro jellyfish have been killing off the salmon. Last year, a record 17 million deaths were reported in Scotland alone. MSPs launched an inquiry after 2 damning reports back in 2018 ordered environmental improvements. They want to see what's changed. The industry insists the situation is much improved.
This is a group, a committee of MSPs who have, since the beginning of May, been looking into salmon farming. The idea that they don't really know what's going on or could be easily fooled by us, I think it's a bit insulting to them. And we were really open.
Farmed salmon is the UK's biggest food export, worth more than £500 million to the economy. It's big business, but this MSP who was on the visit still has questions.
I want clarity from the company around what was happening, and what we're trying to do is ensure that salmon farming across Scotland works really well in terms of what they do with the environment.
Salmon farming has received stiff opposition from those who feel it trashes the marine environment. Whether or not this was routine clearance is in dispute. But with so many fish involved, it's certainly a challenging image the industry will have to justify when they appear before the same MSPs at Holyrood next week. Kevin Keane reporting Scotland.
Now, take a look at this lovely gallery. Well, these paintings are part of a historic collection belonging to the Paisley Art Institute, but they're due to sell them off tomorrow night after a row over space in the town's new museum. Campaigners want to stop the sale and have urged the Scottish Government to intervene, but an 11th-hour bid to prevent it going ahead seems to have failed. Our arts correspondent Polly McLean reports.
A snapshot of Scottish art, collected in Paisley over a century and about to be sold at auction. The works should have gone on display in the new Paisley Museum, but a bitter row over arrangements has led to Paisley Art Institute removing their whole collection.
Obviously, with the Paisley shawl, we do not want to hopefully ever get rid of this particular piece.
Some, like this image, the Paisley shawl, will now be displayed in their new home, the Glasgow Art Club. But 96 of the most historic works will be sold at auction.
You can't hold on to an awful lot of stuff, but we can pare it back a wee bit, and now we're going to keep about 2/3 of the collection, and there will be more or less a lot of pieces will permanently on show.
That has angered many people in Paisley who wanted the Scottish Government to intervene.
A number of constituents, including the artist Ailey Montague, who has started a petition, feel passionately that artworks gifted to Paisley should not be lost to the town.
But they've since decided that it's a curatorial decision and a matter for the organisation and its board of trustees. For this local artist, that's not enough.
150 years ago, this society came to be to foster the arts in Paisley, to foster young artists, and then they're selling the heritage that they got because of that to move to Glasgow.
And although the auction is tomorrow, she says there's still time.
The paintings are still here. They're not sold yet. For me, until the auctioneer bangs the hammer, it's not too late.
Polly McLean, reporting Scotland.
And we'll let you know what happens with that. But Lewis is here with today's sport. Another big week of European football.
Absolutely, Laura. It was quite the week last week in the Champions League. Now it is over to the Europa League indeed. Thank you very much. Hello there. Yes, as Rangers arrive in Sweden to prepare for their Europa League opener, their manager Philippe Clement insists that he is going nowhere after reports in Belgium linked him with a move to Anderlecht. This was the Ibrox side training in Glasgow this morning before boarding a flight to Malmo. They'll be without Oscar Cortés, who's been ruled out for several weeks with an injury. Clement faced the media in the last hour and addressed those rumours of a return to his homeland during a period of transition off the field for Rangers. It comes after interim chairman John Gilligan said the club are courting fresh investment while searching for a new chief executive.
I engaged myself long-term for Rangers last month. Whoever comes, whatever team comes, I'm not going to go away. So, really clear. I want this project with the club to make it really successful for the future. And we all know we need time for that. We need a few transfer windows for that. We need a lot of work to do for that. And that's what I want to do. Because I love the city, I love the club. I love the dynamic at Ibrox with the fans. So I'm here to stay. Very clear.
The Hearts' chief executive has revealed that Stephen Naismith would still be in charge at the club had they not had a very average second half in their defeat to St Mirren on Saturday. Tynecastle chief Andrew McKinlay has also revealed that interim manager Liam Fox will not be considered for the role permanently and hinted that the analytical company owned by prospective new shareholder Tony Bloom will help assess potential candidates. Caledonia Gladiators head coach Gareth Murray believes the new Super League basketball, which starts later this week, is a big opportunity to grow the sport. The 9-team set-up replaces the British Basketball League, which collapsed in the summer after financial concerns. Gladiators, who are the only Scottish side in the league, get their campaign underway against Manchester in the trophy competition on Friday night.
It's a big moment for British basketball. The new Super League, 9 teams this year in the men's league. We're trying to grow, right? We're trying to grow. We're trying to get a good fan base between every team. We want more franchises in the league. So no, it's a big moment for British basketball, but also for the Caledonia Gladiators. We want to take another step forward, build the club from the men's team, the women's team, the community. So no, it's a big exciting year for us. We want to progress from last year, like you said. We were joint second. That gave us a third place with points difference. We want to take another level. We want to be the top franchise, the best team this year.
To squash, and Scotland's Lisa Aitken here says she's still hopeful of fulfilling a lifelong dream by competing at the Olympics, despite fearing she'd never walk again following a serious knee injury. The 34-year-old has had surgery 3 times, keeping her out of the sport for nearly 2 years, but will make her comeback in Qatar next week. And while she's unsure what to expect when she steps onto the court, Aitken is relishing the future.
Obviously, we've Commonwealth Games in 2 years' time. Hopefully, squash can be included in that setup in Glasgow, and then not beating around the bush, but we've been included in the Olympics for the first time in LA 28. I will be 38. That's a very, very long shot of a target, but so long as I'm healthy, and if the season goes well this year, that may become a target for me.
All the best there in our comeback as well, Laura. And also to say there'll be plenty more looking forward to that Rangers game on the 9 later tonight.
Good stuff. You covered all the bases there, Lewis. Thank
Always.
you. Now, it is Wednesday, of course, so it is debate night. Here's Stephen Jarden with the details.
Debate night is the only show in Scotland where the audience get to ask the questions. Tonight we're in, well, there's the clue, Dundee. Answering them this evening, Stephen Gethins, MP from the SNP, Pam Duncan-Glancy, MSP from Scottish Labour, Douglas Lumsden from the Scottish Conservatives, columnist Kenny Farquharson and broadcaster Leslie Riddick. Join me for debate night on the BBC Scotland channel from Dundee, 10:30.
And now Gillian is here with the weather, and wow, you always go to Argyll and Butte for putting on the show, don't you?
Some stunning pictures. We've had some lovely September sunshine on offer across much of Scotland today, Laura. There is a change on the way with rain for some tonight and tomorrow, and chilly northeasterly winds setting in as well. So a different feel through the rest of the week, I think. But today it was largely dry and fine with some good sunny spells for many of us. But we already have some rain just edging into southern Scotland. It's down to low pressure. It's associated front set to bring out breaks of rain tonight, some heavy to initially southern Scotland, but it will nudge northwards into the central belt, into parts of Fife, Perthshire, Stirlingshire and Argyll. That rain persistent and heavy at times, and it comes in on freshening east-northeasterly winds. Further north, a few showers, mainly for the Isles, but largely dry. Some clear spells and a few chilly spots as well. We could get down to 3 Celsius in sheltered parts of the Highlands. So tomorrow, a blustery, wet start for central and southern Scotland. There will be an improvement of sorts through the afternoon, with the heaviest of that rain pulling away southwards. So by around about 3 o'clock for the Northern Isles, it's a mix of sunny spells and showers coming in on brisk northeasterly winds. A similar mix for the North Highlands and the Western Isles. Relatively few showers and good sunny spells further south across the Highlands and in the northeast. And for central and southern Scotland, even once the rain clears, bit of a legacy of cloud, but some bright spells coming through. A noticeably brisk northeasterly wind, though strongest for the Hebrides, for coastal Argyll and the Rinns of Galloway, gusting 40 to 45 miles an hour. Now into tomorrow night, the winds become more northerly and they'll continue to bring in a feed of showers. Some of them will be heavy, and for the Highlands and the northeast, where the main focus of the showers will be, it turns chilly enough that they'll be wintry on the mountains. A cold feel for Friday. You can see winds coming right in from the north, bringing in cold air, bringing in a feed of showers, mainly for the northern and western Isles and northern parts of the mainland. For central and southern Scotland, in that wind direction, a decent amount of shelter, so a good bit of dry and bright weather and some good sunny spells. But the temperatures on the thermometer, only 9 to 12 Celsius, add on that wind chill, and for some in the north, only feeling like 5 or 6. That's the forecast.
Gosh, better make the most of today then. Thanks, Gillian. And that is Reporting Scotland. The late news is at 10:30. Until then, enjoy your evening. Good night.